Hi guys, Shannon Brown here with problem-based learning. So what is problem-based learning? Well, problem-based learning, the definition is hands-on active learning centered around investigating and resolving real-world problems. Howard Gardner actually defined intelligence as the ability to solve problems or create products that are of value. So it aligns pretty significantly with what problem-based learning is. Some characteristics of problem-based learning. There's a few that you might see if you were to observe problem-based learning in action or observe an instructor using problem-based learning. First, problem-based learning typically starts with an open-ended problem. So this is a problem that doesn't have a correct answer or doesn't have a right answer. The problems or cases are pretty context specific. Students tend to work in small groups of approximately 5 students or so, and it's very self-directed. These groups are very collaborative, and the learners act as the problem solvers. A key problem is identified, and a solution is not only agreed upon with the group, but it's also implemented within the group. So the teacher's role, the teacher is more of a facilitator of learning than the actual director. So we kind of call it in education the guide on the side. And they facilitate the learning process and help to promote an environment of more of an inquiry environment, of questioning rather than just spewing out information at the students, to have them memorize it, recall main facts. This approach allows students to apply their knowledge to new situations, which allows for more critical thinking to happen. And we all know with the Common Core, that's the big buzzword is critical thinking. Creativity is also something that's important as far as problem-based learning goes. Problem-based learning also improves problem-based skills or problem-solving skills. It helps to increase motivation as far as the students participating in their learning. And it also helps students learn to transfer the knowledge that they have or that they've currently obtained to new situations or future situations. Teachers with a more progressivist philosophy of education might be seen using this type of guide on the side approach to learning with problem-based learning. So some history on problem-based learning. It originally originated from a curriculum reform by a medical facility or a medical faculty, at Case Western Reserve University in the late 1950s. As medical and science programs began to become more innovative, a medical school called McMaster University in Canada evolved the problem-based learning model, particularly in the small group learning. And then shortly thereafter, 3 other medical schools adopted the problem-based model, listed below: Newcastle, the University of Newcastle, University of Limburg, and the University of New Mexico. It started all out in the medical and science field, but then it adapted to various other disciplines such as business and law, engineering, and, as we all know, education. So some theory behind problem-based learning. Problem-based learning can be thought of a combination of both of these theories, both Piaget and Vygotsky. Piaget was more of the cognitive constructivist, and he focused more on how individuals learn and understand things as it relates to the developmental stages and learning styles. And Vygotsky was more of the social constructivist, more focusing more on how meaning and understanding grow out of the interactions that we have, our social interactions and our social encounters. So why problem-based learning? Well, problem-based learning is very much different than traditional learning and traditional practices. Traditional learning tends to bore students. It's an abundance of rote memorization where the instructor is just spewing information out at you and you're sitting there listening to them and trying to absorb it all. So this really disconnects students from reality, from what's going on in the real world. Students find this information irrelevant outside of the four walls of the classroom when it's just being given to them and they're not actually involved in the learning process. Students often forget much of what they've learned, and I say learned very loosely because it's, again, just information given to them. And I always say to my students that the one who's doing the speaking is the one who's doing the learning, and typically if it's me just spewing information out, then my students aren't getting a whole lot out of it. When they forget a lot of the information that they've learned, they definitely have a difficult time applying the skills to the workforce later on. Traditional lecture-based classrooms don't typically do a good job of preparing students for collaborative team situations, which, as we all know, in the real world or in reality, we all have to work with team members in jobs. Many students in graduate level work tend to feel the need to jump through specific hoops or earn their rite of passage to a graduate degree um, instead of actually learning the information. This gives the final grade more power than the learning itself, and I'm a firm believer in mastery learning and standards-based grading, and this kind of ties a little bit more into that than the traditional lecture-based model. Mastery learning is not typically the goal in traditional instruction. It's more learning for the test and being able to memorize whatever it is that the instructor was trying to get across, at least for a short period of time. Real life is all about solving problems. So questions like, how can I pass this class? Or how well do I manage my time? Things like, how can I complete my coursework as efficiently and cost effective as possible? And I know this is what we're all trying to do. How can I fix the door hinge? Or questions similar to that. A lot of times problem-based learning looks at, well, here's the actual door hinge and here's my desired door hinge, and there's a problem to be solved here, and it needs to be fixed, and how do we go about fixing this door hinge, or whatever problem you may want to apply problem-based learning to. So there's two different types of problems. The first problem is a well-structured problem. And these are very easily defined problems. All of the information is provided and they typically have a single answer. A lot of times they're not related to real life situations. So examples are as followed, and I'll let you go ahead and look over those for a minute. You can pause the screen if necessary to check those out. And the other type of problem is an ill-structured problem. And these are very much like real life problems. Not all of the information is present, and typically they do have many solutions or more than one solution that's possible to answer or to get at your final result. And they, a lot of the times, must be defined and often redefined as far as the problem goes. And I've given you a few ill-structured problems that you can go ahead and pause the screen if you'd like to look over those and to reflect on those. So utilizing a problem-based learning model is depicted in this graphic right here on this slide. First, an ill-structured problem is assigned to a group. The group typically gathers information about what they already know, and the problem is discussed based on the knowledge the group members already have. They make it real to themselves. This analysis requires discussion and agreement on the work, on the definition, and they sort out which issues and aspects of the situation are worthy of further investigation. This initial analysis usually yields the problem statement, and this serves as the starting point for the investigation. It may be revised as assumptions are questioned and new information comes out of it, but this is typically where the original problem is started, or they find the real problem. Um, they Next, they typically decide what is needed to solve the problem. In this phase, the group is analyzing the problem into components, discussing implications, entertaining possible solutions, and developing a working hypothesis. So guessing what they think is correct, or what the correct answer or solution might be. This activity is similar to brainstorming. The group will need to formulate learning goals, and they outline what further information is needed and how the information can best be obtained. The group will make a list with issues such as what resources to consult, people to interview, articles to read, and what specific actions each team member needs to perform to complete this or to solve this problem. As new information is acquired, the group will analyze and evaluate it for its reliability and usefulness in applying it to the actual problem, and figure out how does it make an impact, or how can we impact something to solve this problem, or what are we going to do about it, is kind of the final end outcome and in problem-based learning. So this was a brief overview of problem-based learning. I have attached some references for you guys if you want to take a peek at those, and if you need more information on problem-based learning. Thank you.